Okay, like today, we're going to be talking about one of the greatest films of our generation. Al Pacino's Scarface, man. Okay? So, let me start by saying this is a classic. Okay? This is about Tony Montana coming to United States. And he becomes embroiled in the drug trade, man. And he thinks that he can be number one. He starts taking out mob bosses left and right. He double crosses people. But the movie also tells you, man, when you got your business to handle, you keep it under control. He clearly did not. And at the end, well, let's just say he won't be coming around again. But in all seriousness, this is a really amazing, powerful film, okay? It's got Al Pacino, Michelle Pfeiffer, Stephen Bauer, man, okay? All these big-name players from, like, the 70s, you know. So, let's talk about the film a little bit. This is an Oliver Stone film. If you guys don't know that, you better do your homework, okay? So, let's talk about it. First thing I want to talk about is that this movie was not meant to be as big as it was. This thing was a monster, especially on home video. I'm going to get out of character for a minute. But yeah, it was a monster when it came out on home video. It really did kind of okay at the box office. It didn't really do that great, but it garnered a cult following. Now, when Oliver Stone put this thing together, he really didn't know it was going to be as big as it was. All right? So there's that. The other thing that you'll notice is that this version here, the Platinum Edition, has a neat little feature on it, which we'll talk about in just a minute, but you can keep track of all the F words and the gunshots. And you can actually have fun with it. And they pretty much nail it. This film, believe it or not, was back and forth with the ratings board for a particular scene. And people were going, okay, Greg, I've seen the movie. It's pretty violent. What scene could it be? Well, it was the infamous chainsaw scene. When Tony first starts getting into the drug game, he goes to a hotel and he meets one of the buyers. And apparently the deal doesn't go well and one of Tony's friends is hung up in the shower and chainsawed. The scene was pretty graphic in the theatrical run. However, it was trimmed down by a couple of seconds because it was not given an R rating. It was given an X rating. All this is covered in a documentary you'll see in the film. You know, if you buy the Platinum Edition, it's a special feature on there. The one funny thing about the scene is when you watch this movie on television, you see Tony's guy get hung up on the shower rod. You see the chainsaw come out. You don't even see the shootout in the TV scene. You see Tony out in the street with a gun, and he just fires into the screen. There is no mention of what happened in that room, which I think is one of the stupidest edits in TV history. But for TV, you got to do what you got to do. The other thing is that this thing had a hell of a problem with scouting locations. Seems like everybody did not want to be involved with this. Again, you'll see that on the DVD. The one thing about this movie is, like I said, in character, it is stood the test of time. I mean, rappers, you know, actors, everybody quotes this movie. And this thing had a hell of a lot of actors in it that really didn't think they were going to be famous off of this deal. They really didn't. The one thing, though, too, is people don't realize is this is a remake of the 1932 film Scarface, which I've never seen. But apparently Brian De Palma and Oliver Stone wanted to recreate the, you know, gangster image. And they did it pretty well. Tony's world is that of underworld nightclubs, drug trades, seedy bosses, and doing whatever it takes to get to the top. But, like I said, the special features shine on this thing. The audio, if you have a home surround sound, is 5.1, which means in the end shootout sequence in Tony's mansion, you will get to not only duck bullets, but probably run from them as well. The other thing that's pretty wild is that this soundtrack is pretty hip. Somehow they've turned up the music a little bit. You know, when Tony starts making it big and that song Push It to the Limit kicks in, it really does a number on your speakers. It's pretty awesome. This thing, like I said, has spawned a lot of stuff, one of which was this video game for the Xbox console. It's called Scarface, The World Is Yours. The game is Grand Theft Auto-like, but I will tell you a couple interesting facts about this thing, is that Al Pacino did not do the voiceover for Scarface in this game. His throat had been riddled with cancer from smoking. He actually handpicked his successor, and it sounds identical. If you're a fan of the film, you will revisit, some of the locales, the Babylon Club, the hotel that I just mentioned with the chainsaw scene. You will also explore what happened if Tony lived. And right now you're going, okay, Greg, he was shot at the end. He fell off the balcony, into the pool, whatever. The video game starts off at that very moment when Sosa's guys actually storm Tony's mansion. It picks up and you end up fighting your way out of the mansion, but your empire's crumbled. You have to rebuild it. Thus, the open world adventure begins. This game is pretty good. The only thing I will tell you is if you do buy it, you can play it on the 360 if you have a hard drive. The thing is, I'm going to tell you, you're going to have to cheat constantly. If you try to smuggle cocaine from one island to the mainland of Miami, where this film is set and this game is set, you're going to be constantly bombarded with pirates. So you have to use your Fix Tony's card cheat. This will allow you to pretty much get where you need to go. This game was also dismissed a little bit because people thought it was just a fake rip-off of the movie. They didn't know it was a continuation. You build your empire, you unlock exotics, and the more exotics you unlock, the more level you go up. You fill up your Scarface, decal, in the game. And every time you do it, Sosa gives you a call to taunt you. Sosa is the one that ordered a hit on Tony in the film, if you haven't seen it. And at the end of the thing, you have to buy all the properties in Miami, and then you go to war with Sosa, which is extremely gratifying, considering that some of this gameplay and some of the things that you have to do are extremely frustrating in terms of money. However, like I said, this game should have been called Scarface, The World Is Yours in time. Because it takes a hell of a long time to pretty much acquire all the territories you have taken over. This game does feature actors from the film, Stephen Bauer, everybody that was in the film, living or dead, has a part in this film except for Al Pacino. But Al Pacino's estate has approved everything in this game. So even though he wasn't directly a part of it, he pretty much said, okay, this is what I want you to do. He knows where the character was going. He knows how Tony would react to situations. And he approved it. So if you have a chance, pick it up. It's one of my favorite games. And like I said, underrated at very least. But it does tell a story. If Scarface were to get a sequel, this was probably what it would be. Okay, back to the movie. So like I was saying, the soundtrack is great, the acting is great, and there's a lot of stuff on there. There's over 20 minutes of deleted scenes in here. Not one is the infamous chainsaw scene, which really I wish they would have put on there. They should have shot it. But like I said, battles with the ratings board, and it got an X rating for realism. There's also an interesting scene in here that takes place just before the chainsaw scene in the deleted scene section, where Tony and one of the henchmen Tony acquires actually goes and they, figure out what drugs they're going to buy. This scene did bother the ratings board a little bit because it wasn't the idea that they were getting the drugs. It was the idea that that scene told you what drugs were pretty much available. They didn't want the general public to go out and say, I want to go get a bunch of hash because it was in Scarface. Now people know about it. Now they're going to go get it. Not good. And that really bothered them. There's some of when Tony first meets Sosa and they talk about a deal. There's a little snippet in there where the guy that gets pushed out of the helicopter, I forget his name, there's a scene, a little bit more of him in the helicopter. But nothing really, that is essential to the film, I would say. But if you haven't seen this movie, like I said, in character, this is about Tony Montana coming over from Cuba. He's a political prisoner. basically gets into the drug trade and takes it so far that he ends up betraying. Now, Tony does have a moral code in this film. A lot of people look at this and say, oh, gangster, he'll shoot anybody. But Tony does not. If you have kids, Tony won't kill your kids. If you're a target and you have your wife, Tony's not going to kill you because you have your wife. There was a moral, fiber in Tony that basically he wouldn't do it. Even though he was ruthless and cold-hearted, he wouldn't do that to you. Which is why he got whacked in the film. And I know everyone has probably read about this right now. But there's a scene in the film where he is contracted to kill somebody who's going to give a speech at the UN. And Tony says, yeah, I'll do it. I'll do it for fun, whatever. They go to do it. He's got kids in the car. There's a car bomb strapped underneath him. Tony would not hit the red button to blow up the car bomb. The interesting thing, too, is that when you take a look at this film, I'm going to zoom up a little bit so you guys can check it out. When you look at it, there's a ton of deleted scenes in here. Making of Scarface, the video game, which you guys should check out, because it actually did want to make me replay this. The rebirth, the crack creating, and there you see it, right there. This is one of the most interesting things. It says, a fascinating look at the film's making of film Scarface and the struggles that plagued the filmmakers, location scoutings, filming the infamous chainsaw scene, and battles to get an R rating. That's interesting. Y'all check that out. Now, I'm going to remind you, when this thing was released, the ratings board was pretty strict at that point. Now, the TV clips are hilarious. If you haven't seen this film on TV, it's just funny. There's over 200 plus F words in this thing, and to see them try to recreate it, to me is hilarious. Because it's so outlandishly stupid. Just like I told you about the the TV scene where Tony and his buddy are in the hotel and they don't even show the shootout. I mean, they take little chunks of the movie and just basically, take it away. This is great. This is a great film. If you haven't seen it, it runs about 2.5 hours. Or I'm sorry. Yeah, I was right. Okay, it's almost 3 hours long. My bad. But the move's so fast, it's great. Michelle Pfeiffer was always awesome in it. So, the only thing that you gotta ask yourself, man, is do I want to pick this thing up, man? Because I want to rule the world, man. The world is mine and everything in it when I get this DVD. So that's what I'm saying. I suggest you go get it, you bring it back, and you watch the thing, man. And you tell me how you like it, man. Because I put this thing together. Me, that's who. So it's GW. And I will see you at the Montana Mansion.